Welcome to English Speak Up Academy. I'm Alex, and with me is Emma. She's really great at helping people break down big goals.
Thanks. I think a lot of us can relate to having big ambitions, but maybe not always feeling ready to tackle them.
We've definitely all been there, feeling motivated one minute but then completely stuck the next. Maybe we can figure out why that happens.
I think so. And especially when it comes to things like learning English, it's not that people aren't motivated. The goal just seems so huge.
Yeah, I get that. When we think about everything we need to do to achieve something big, it can feel pretty overwhelming. I think a lot of people misunderstand what that feeling is.
Yeah.
They might label themselves as lazy, but really they just might be overwhelmed, or they might be tired, or maybe they just don't have a clear direction of what to do next.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think a lot of times it's not that we don't have willpower, it's that we need to adjust our environment or maybe change our approach a little bit. Because if our brain is just exhausted, it's going to resist doing any extra effort.
Mm.
Or if success feels really risky to us, we're going to procrastinate because that seems safer.
And if you're not sure what the next step is, it's really easy to just do nothing. I think that's where a lot of us fall into this trap of having these great ambitions, but we don't have the actions to back it up.
Right. Like if you said, I'm going to be fluent in English in 3 months, that's an amazing goal. But it's
Yeah.
easy to see why that might make someone freeze up a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
You get so focused on the finish line that you don't know where to even begin.
It's like your brain hits the brakes before you even start. Psychologists actually call this the effort paradox. We naturally want to go for things that feel rewarding and avoid things that feel like a lot of work.
So if something feels too big and too difficult, our brains kind of just say, nope, not doing that.
Exactly. And that's when we end up on our phones or watching TV instead of going after what we really want.
Is there a way to kind of trick our brains into wanting to make progress?
Well, the trick is to break those big goals down into much smaller ones. So instead of trying to study for 2 hours, tell yourself you'll just do 2 minutes.
2 minutes definitely sounds a lot easier than 2 hours.
The thing is, once you actually start, you're way more likely to keep going. And this isn't just for learning English. If you want to write a book, just write one sentence a day.
So you're saying those little wins add up to bigger ones.
They really do. It's like you're teaching your brain that taking action is a good thing.
It makes sense. But what's actually going on in our brains when we set a goal?
So your prefrontal cortex, that's the part of your brain that makes plans and decisions. It's the part that says, I'm going to do this. But then there's also the limbic system, which is more about survival and instant gratification.
So it's like a battle between the part that wants to achieve something and the part that just wants to stay comfortable.
Yeah, you could say that. And that limbic system, sometimes it sees a big goal as a threat. It makes you anxious, which leads to procrastination.
So how do we win that battle between our ambitious side and our comfort-seeking side?
Well, one thing that helps is the 2-minute rule. Basically, you just start with a task that takes less than 2 minutes to do.
Like just opening your English notebook or finding a podcast to listen to.
Yeah, exactly. Just getting started helps you overcome that feeling of not wanting to do anything, and it kicks your prefrontal cortex into gear.
I've heard of something called temptation bundling. Is that similar?
It is. It's where you take something you like to do and combine it with something you need to do. Like only watching your favorite show if you have English subtitles on, or listening to an audiobook while you go for a walk.
That way it doesn't feel like a chore. It's like you're rewarding yourself for doing something good.
Right. And another thing that's important is to think about progress over perfection. Instead of getting upset that you're not fluent yet, be happy that you learned 5 new words today.
So it's about changing your perspective.
It makes a huge difference. Every step forward is a good thing, no matter how small.
I think that's a really important point, especially for people who are learning English. They want to be fluent, but they also feel like they're drowning in all the things they have to learn.
It's a tough spot to be in. But a good way to deal with that is to break fluency down into smaller, more manageable steps.
Like instead of saying, I have to be fluent, maybe say, I'm going to learn 5 new phrases for small talk this week. Or I'm going to listen to 1 English song and write down 3 words I don't know.
That's a perfect example. You're setting realistic goals that'll build your confidence and keep you going.
So we've talked about breaking things down. What else helps people not feel so overwhelmed, especially when they're learning English?
Well, there's this idea of gamification. Basically, it's turning language learning into a game. There are tons of apps and websites that do this.
That's cool. I can see how that would make it a lot more fun.
It really does. And you can also use what we call dead time. Like you could listen to a podcast while you're on the bus or waiting in line.
Little bits here and there really do make a difference.
Yeah, even just 5 minutes. It all adds up if you do it consistently. It's all about finding ways to make English a natural part of your day.
This kind of reminds me of something else we were talking about. Sometimes it feels like it's not just about the task itself. It's our attitude that gets in the way.
Oh, for sure. The way you talk to yourself has a massive impact on your motivation. If you have the right words in your head, it can help you overcome procrastination and feel more confident.
Can you give us some examples of those kinds of phrases that would help someone learning English?
Absolutely. One really important thing is setting boundaries. Like if you're feeling overwhelmed or just tempted to put something off, you can say, I'm just focusing on small steps right now, or I'm going to practice for 5 minutes first.
Those are good. You're politely saying no to distractions, but you're also reminding yourself what you're committed to.
Exactly. Another thing is celebrating wins, even small ones. It's so easy to just brush those aside, but recognizing them is so important.
It's true. We get so focused on what we haven't done yet that we forget to appreciate how far we've come.
Right. So use phrases like, hey, I understood that podcast today, progress, or I actually used, can you repeat that in a conversation? Nice. Little affirmations like that keep you motivated.
So basically, give yourself a pat on the back whenever you can.
You got it. Now, what about those times when you really just don't feel like studying? You need phrases for those moments, too.
We've all been there. It's finding a way to push past that initial resistance that's tough.
So acknowledge how you're feeling, but don't let it stop you. Try saying something like, I don't want to do this, but I'll just do 2 minutes.
It's like you're tricking yourself into getting started.
You can also remind yourself, progress, not perfection. That helps you focus on the journey, not some unrealistic idea of what you should be doing.
Especially with learning a new language, perfectionism can be a real killer.
Totally. And one last thing, don't forget about asking for help. You don't have to do this alone.
It can be hard to admit when you need help.
It can. But it's a sign of strength to ask for what you need. Try phrases like, can you explain that again? Or is there a simpler way to say this?
Sometimes even just saying, I'm struggling with this is enough to open up a conversation.
It is. Having these phrases ready to go makes a huge difference. They help you stay on track, stay motivated, and remind you that you're not alone in this.
Okay, now for something fun. We have a challenge for everyone listening.
We call it the 2-minute win challenge.
It's super simple, but really powerful. First, pick something you can do in 2 minutes or less. Like watching a short YouTube video in English, reading a news article, or maybe writing 2 sentences about your day.
Make it easy, something you can fit into your day, no problem.
Then, use one of the phrases we talked about to celebrate yourself. Say, my small win is finishing this article, or I practiced English for 2 minutes, boom.
Acknowledge that effort, no matter how small.
And finally, if you want, share your win online with the hashtag #TinyWinsTribe. We'll be checking it out and cheering you on.
Sharing your wins with others is super motivating. It makes you feel like you're part of a community.
Remember, done is better than perfect. Even 2 minutes is a victory.
Being ambitious isn't about making these huge leaps. It's about being consistent with small steps. Keep focusing on those little wins, and you'll be amazed at what you can achieve.
I like that idea. We can all be ambition hackers, figuring out how to make our brains work for us.
I love that. It really is about knowing yourself and finding what works.
We all have that potential. It's just about finding those strategies and getting in the right headspace.
That's it. Breaking things down and celebrating those wins.
And consistency. Right.
Yeah.
Small efforts, but make them a habit.
Definitely. And remember to have fun with it. Learning English shouldn't feel like a chore. It should feel like an adventure.
Well said. Thanks so much for joining us today on English Speak Up Academy.
It was a pleasure.
We hope you got a lot out of this.
And keep practicing, everyone. Every little bit counts.